Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me again for another live Q&A session here on my channel. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I am a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you tips, tricks, techniques, things that I do every day in my own voiceover business. And then we get together in these weekly chats to talk about a topic or two. We'll see how it goes. But if you're not new here, then you know every week we have a new poll, which is usually the topic of the day. And today's poll is, what is your biggest setup challenge? Because we're talking about DIY audiobook setup. We're focusing on just getting started in audiobook narration and getting your room set up. Actually, more than your room. We're talking about, microphones, interfaces, your room, of course, equipment, DAWs, editing. We're talking about all of it. So if you have a particular question and you're just getting started with audiobook narration, you've got not only myself, but you've got a slew of other people watching that could offer you some insight. So don't be afraid to ask. There's no such thing as a stupid question. It's highly likely we asked the same question in the beginning. So no dumb questions, just ask. This will be your opportunity to get that answer that you're looking for. It's the purpose of these, right? So don't feel dumb. Back to the poll. We got about 27 votes so far. I've got one of those shirts with like the itchy tags on the back. Oh, God. So I'm going to be itching. It's driving me nuts. 15% of you said mic or gear selection is your biggest hang up. 33% of you said treating my room. So we will talk about room treatment for sure. And 46% of you said editing and mastering, which is pretty tricky. It can be pretty tricky. So we'll touch on that too. And then 7% of you said ACX requirements, which I have to say, I'm pretty surprised that ACX requirements wasn't the biggest concern, because it's usually one of the harder things to achieve, because, mastering, namely, is, well, I guess your room tier, I'm thinking too far ahead. Mastering is pretty individual, right? It's going to depend on your voice, your proximity, your room, your equipment. There's a lot of factors there. So it's going to be pretty individual for each person and how you master your files. So, and then in turn to achieve proper ACX requirements, I guess is what I should have said. So we will touch on all of that. And then also I did include an additional Q&A for those of you that have been doing this for a while or long enough. What microphone perhaps did you start with that worked well for you that you would recommend to someone looking for their first microphone? And and I just want to throw this out there, and I'm sure we'll touch on this a few times, but keeping in mind that having a good microphone is a great thing, and it might take you a couple tries to find a great microphone. And we'll make some recommendations to hopefully, your first microphone is a great microphone. But more importantly, your space is more important than any software, hardware that you choose. Because if you chose a $30 microphone, or if you're trying to make a decision between a $30 microphone and a $1,000 microphone, that $30 microphone is going to reflect your bad room treatment, whereas your $1,000 microphone is really greatly going to enhance the sound of that bad, meaning not a good thing. It's going to make your badly treated room sound even worse. So even if you start with a $30 microphone, is there even a $30 microphone? Probably a $50 mic. Regardless, I'm pumping the brakes on that tangent. Okay, so that $50 microphone is really, don't get hung up on expensive equipment. And we also wanted to touch on that today too, is that you don't have to start out with, a Sennheiser 416. You just don't. There's a lot of great microphone options out there, and they don't have to be brand new. You can start out with a secondhand microphone, right? If your little brother does podcasting or whatever, just take one of his old microphones and start with that. But more importantly, treat your room. And then as you start to see some income and start to understand more about, quality and technical aspects and things, then maybe, upgrade your microphone. That's usually the natural progression of things. It's how I did it, and everybody else I know. You started out with just something, and then as you started to move along, you would upgrade your microphone, and then at some point you'll have multiple microphones, which isn't a bad thing. But I know some of you are on the cusp of or are deep into a microphone addiction, which I know is very easy to do too. But having backups is a good thing. So any microphone that I have upgraded, purchased, any interface that I have replaced, I've always kept the older piece. Unless it's broken, then, there's not much you can do about it. But if you're just upgrading, save the old stuff, because you never know when the new piece is going to have an issue and you need something to work with. Wanted to throw that out there too. So I always keep my old stuff for backups. All right, so it looks like we're still editing and mastering is the biggest hang-up. Okay, so then we'll talk about editing and mastering. Now, I do have to say that there are a handful of DAWs out there that you can choose from to record and edit with. So editing and mastering is also going to be, or how you edit and master is going to be also dependent on which DAW you choose, because the verbiage on these DAWs may differ slightly. So anything I say today, I am referring to using Adobe Audition because that is the DAW that I use. But there is also Reaper, which is also a great choice for a DAW. Audacity is what I started with, and I think most people start with because it's free. And if, what's wrong with free? There's nothing wrong with free. It's a great DAW for free. It's got, I think every DAW has its pros and cons, but I think the reason I switched to Adobe Audition because it seemed to me a little bit more intuitive and easy to use. Whereas some of the things that frustrated me the most about Audacity were non-issues with Adobe Audition. So it saved frustration and time, lots of time. But again, Audacity is not a bad DAW to use, especially for being free. But I'd say those are the big three in terms of DAWs. Reaper and Adobe Audition, most of the time I've seen there's some sort of a trial that you can do with them. So I would say try them all and see which one sort of, works best for you, which one that you feel most comfortable with. They're all going to be foreign to you in the beginning. So if they don't make any sense at all, don't get down on yourself. You're basically learning a new language. But what you're looking for is ease of use. Try them out. Record a little something. Try to edit a little something, you know, export a file or save a file. You know, just go through the basic motions in each of the DAWs and see which one of them feels right to you, which one is a little bit easier to understand for you, and then choose that one. Because the DAW is your recording software is going to be something you're going to be using every day, potentially, you know, for years, with everything that you audition with, everything that you know, every project that you create. So it's important to choose one that you feel comfortable with and learn it. Editing and mastering. What else can we talk about editing and mastering that's sort of broad? I will have to say that if you're looking for specific DAW features, your best bet for editing and mastering is to either, start with YouTube. Start with YouTube University and search up the DAW that you have chosen and what you're trying to do. There are tons of videos for each DAW. I did a lot of learning about Adobe Audition just by using YouTube. If you have chosen Adobe Audition, I myself have quite a few videos here on my channel where I go through the basic procedures, features, steps of using Adobe Audition. But there are also great creators out there that go through the basics with Audacity and Reaper as well. Or you can join groups. As I always say, one of the best things that you can do as a beginning voice artist or audiobook narrator is to join groups, whether that be on Facebook or if you have like TikTok or Instagram, start following other voice actors. They'll give great tips on these things. What is going on outside? Anyway, I don't know what's happening outside. I think they're throwing around gravel or something. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Sorry. Squirrel. Join groups. So distracting. Join groups, even masterminds, workshops, things like that, where you have peers, people of all different experience levels and all different DAW users can give you tips on what they have done with editing and mastering. Yeah, that was so weird. I think they're tossing around gravel or something outside. It's the apocalypse, yeah. I don't know what's going on. They're like right on the other side of my wall here. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but anyway, it's creepy. Yeah, Adobe Audition is probably one of the DAWs that I recommend most often. It just totally like blew my inertia. What else can we talk about? Oh, that was the other thing. So YouTube University groups or hiring an audio engineer. If you want to just cut through all of the madness, all of the time, all of the frustration, trying to figure it out yourself, hire an audio engineer who is proficient with one of these DAWs. And most of the time, they will have their own tutorial videos that you can go through that will explain A to Z how this DAW works. And then also, sometimes, in addition, will include some sort of a one-on-one where they can walk you through how to use your DAW and also create a rack preset for you. That is exactly what I did, but it took me about 2 years to do it. I finally reached out to Tim Tippett, and he created some shortcuts for me with Adobe Audition and also created a preset rack, just completely dependent on using my room, my setup, this microphone, all of the things. So that just saved me a whole lot of time. But those are probably the best things that you can do because editing and mastering is going to be pretty individual. So those are the best things that I can offer you. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comments about editing and mastering. Let's get into the comments because We're about 13 minutes in already, and then we can definitely touch on treating some room treatment effects, and then also answer some questions, because I have a feeling there's going to be some specific questions. So let's take this banner off the screen. Let's go to the comments. So sorry about that, guys. I was like, what is happening outside? Paul was here. He was here before I was even awake this morning. Good morning, Paul. I brought the donuts and the tacos. Ken says, morning all. Hopefully everyone is doing well today. So far, so good. Abe Froman says, good morning from a stifling Mashville. Brought sausages. Abe says, editing and mastering would have been my first vote, but now that I broke down and got Audition, I'm struggling with it. To be fair, I did just get it last night. Anytime you get anything new, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to relearn, because if you did what I did and started with Audacity and then moved to Adobe Audition, it's going to be a new language, right? But a lot of the functionalities are the same, just labeled, they have different terminology. So once you discover that, it was like, oh, this does, okay, that makes more sense. It'll come to you. But I think, for me anyway, most of the people that I was following on social media and on YouTube were using Adobe Audition. So it made it really easy for me to apply directly what they were saying when they were talking about voiceover or audiobook specific editing processes or things. So if they were telling me that, hey, I suggest to do this, I can directly take what they said and apply it to my situation, because we're using the same DAW. So that's a definite benefit for you, Abe. But I would just, play around with it and try some new things. And I guarantee you're going to come to find you're like, why did I wait so long to get Adobe Audition? Give yourself some time, though, because, there's a learning curve to anything new. Caesar's here. Hey, Caesar, how you doing with the storm over there? Is it past? Oh, hi, Angela. Seeing as, well, I have no real setup challenge, I decided to pick mic or gear selection because you need to stop buying them is your problem. Choices. I'm on the next phase of my gear upgrade path, and I'm very excited. I'm adding a second compressor to my analog hardware chain for better dynamics control, a console grade audio interface, and a Loughton Clarion, a mic I've had literal dreams of for the last 3 years. I'm surprised it wasn't a U87. That's usually everybody's dream mic. It's mine. All this serves as being able to optimize the signal chain in the analog domain well before it gets converted to digital, optimizing workflow using less plugins and just sounding really damn nice. But before I start waxing poetic, too late. Hello, everyone. I survived a hyper typhoon and have power internet back. Yay! And needed the retail therapy. Buy stuff, feel better, my mom used to say. That's dangerous. Abe says, you're too smart for me, Caesar. I'm still in the basics. Keep in mind, Caesar started where we all did. We all start at the same place. It takes time, discipline, maybe boredom. I don't know. Maybe. And then at some point you get it all, right? Everything just becomes common terminology. Just, you'll get there, Abe. You'll get there. Abe says, everybody needs to Google Clem Fandango and watch the clips. It is hijinks in the sound booth. Another great YouTuber to watch, especially if you're looking to purchase a new microphone and you want to kind of see what the differences are, is Booth Junkie. Go to Booth Junkie. Search up Booth Junkie here on YouTube after this live stream, not right now. Later, just write it down and check it out later if you haven't already. But he is a great channel to watch because he goes through a lot of technical product demonstrations. Like he'll go through and do side-by-sides of different microphones, interfaces. He'll try out new software and things so you can see how it works. if it's worth it, or in the mic's case, on the microphone side of things, you can see what they sound like, and then he'll let you know, a fair comparison. It's kind of how I discovered there was the Synco D2, which is basically the, I don't want to say knockoff, but it's a cheaper version of the 416, which came out maybe 3 months after I bought the 416, and it sounds almost identical for a fraction of the cost. But that's okay. I'm happy with it. Caesar says to Abe, but you have sausages, so that's a plus. But that aside, I started as basic as everyone else. USB mic, untreated spare bedroom, lace curtains. Took a while to get to where I am now. Same. I started recording on a laptop with a Blue Yeti mic in the middle of my living room on a glass dining room table. Shows you how much I knew in the beginning, which was zero. I learned by doing. I learned by trial and error. I learned by falling on my face a lot. That's natural progression of things. It's just how we learn. But if you, as I said before, join those groups, network with people that may have been doing this for a little while, or people who are at the place where you want to be, then you will learn a whole lot faster. But there's no better way of learning than by just doing, by trying, get, hands-on, because you'll retain much more of the information. You can try different things and see what works and what doesn't, especially when it comes to effects and things, because again, everybody's space is so individualized. There's going to be so many variations from studio to studio, from person to person, equipment to equipment, room size to room size. There's just too many variations. So you have to try some things or hire somebody to help you. Those are pretty much the options. Caesar says, regarding what microphone would you recommend to a new audiobook narrator? If budget is constrained, an Audio-Technica AT2020 USB XP. When ready, an Audient ID4 plus a Rode NT1 signature is a good XLR and a good XLR cable. I would have to say, after I discovered that my Blue Yeti wasn't ultimately going to cut it, and I moved into this room, I upgraded to a Rode NT1. Was it an NT1 or an NT1A? I think it was an NT1. Maybe it was an NT1A. I can't remember now. And a Focusrite Scarlett Solo interface. And I rocked with those for a long time. And then I also upgraded my cables, to Caesar's point, to Megami Gold. And you can find all of these things and some of these great recommendations on my website. If you go to voiceoverangela.com and go to the VO Gear page, all of these things that we're probably going to touch on today, or most of them anyway, are going to be on that page, and that way you can see, it'll take you right to the Amazon. You can see how much they are, more information, all the things. But that's pretty much what I started with too. The Scarlett Focusrite Solo, the Rode NT1, and Megami Gold cables. Alternatively, get a Rode NT1 5th Gen and use it over USB first, then get an Audient ID4 and XLR cable later. That way you don't have to spend extra on a starter USB mic. Yeah, a lot of these microphones can either be plugged in as a USB or an XLR. They have that, they have two different cables, or two different outputs, right? So if you don't have an interface, you can use the USB cable to connect it. And then when you're ready, upgrade to an interface and then use the same microphone to plug it in as an XLR. It's pretty cool. Ken P says, I picked up a nice used Rode NT1 with mount from a failed podcaster. He didn't have the factory pop screen, but it was easy to get something from my favorite online retailer. Of course, they don't have to be brand new. You probably find a lot of great gear. There's actually a Facebook group that's just used voiceover gear. I'm trying to remember what it's called, something VO gear, something like that. And then you also have Sweetwater.com also has a used gear marketplace. And then, of course, you got places like Macari and, stuff like that, where people are selling stuff locally, regionally. But if you can't, use it, try it first. I mean, you really take that risk with anything online. But there's a lot of options and places to buy these things pre-owned, so you don't have to buy them brand new if you don't want to, if you just want to kind of try it out. Ken says, I have to agree with Caesar. So many choices and so many conflicting opinions on the interwebs. Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to discern who's just giving an opinion to just give an opinion, right? Even if it's not really their true opinion. They're just speaking to be heard, It's kind of hard to filter out who to follow, who to trust. I would say if you have a particular person that you feel comfortable with, that you've maybe followed for a while, and you watch a lot of their content, if they tell you to try something, I mean, it might not be a bad idea, but I always do a lot of research on whatever it is that I'm contemplating buying. I do a lot of research on it first. I'll find lots of different videos, I'll read all the reviews, and then make a more educated guesstimate on what's going to be the best for me before I purchase it. I'm one of those people. And so far it has served me well to read all the reviews and then just kind of weigh them out. And then also watch Booth Junkie and his reviews on it. Caesar says to Ken, the conflicting opinions are frustrating, especially when they come from the uninformed, or worse, the superstitious. There's also a lot of less VO-specific advice online and more for music. Yes, that is one thing that you definitely need to separate, because microphones are not just used for voice. There's some microphones out there that are better for, recording instruments and things like that. So you do need to look at more of the voice. I don't want to say specific, but they enhance voice more than an instrument. Microphones designed more for voice than instrument, I guess is what I'm saying. Kat is here. Hey, Kat. Hello. I'm learning my DAW, so editing and mastering, but I'm also trying to understand the negative dB stuff. Yeah, the negative numbers always threw me off. It always threw me off. So when you're looking at negative numbers, the smaller the number, the louder it is. So it's just the inverse of basically everything that you've learned growing up. So negative 12 is quieter than negative 3. It's just backwards. Jules says, morning all. I brought some barbecue pork sandwiches for everyone. Oh, good God. My stomach's growling. Sounds good. Caesar says to Kat, good luck, and really try to have fun and enjoy yourself. Don't let it overwhelm you. And if you need help, Platinum Group has sound engineers like Caesar. Jules says, I have so many mics to choose from. I know. Once you start collecting them, it's hard to stop. New001 says, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, New. Katya says, hi, everyone. Well, this topic came in at a perfect time. My Adobe Audition is now making crackling noises in the playbacks. I've tried everything. New XLR, uninstalled, reinstalled. Usually crackling is a connectivity issue. There's something either in the cables or it just doesn't sound like something is either seated properly, or you might have bad cables. Or it could even be the interface. It's not Adobe Audition. It's something feeding into Adobe Audition. And it's usually something in the connection that causes cracklings. Still the cracklings. I think in your case, Katya, I would go back to, you did say that you reinstalled, uninstalled. I would just make sure that I would undo all the cables to everything. Because it could be, I mean, even the cables from your interface to your computer, the cables from your microphone to the interface, it could be really anything. Or it could be something internal if there's something new that you've also incorporated along with Adobe Audition. Or it could even be like the settings, like the buffer size, the sample rate. There's something that's just not meshing. It could be a number of things. But you'll need to have somebody kind of go through that with you to see if we can, process of elimination, figure out what is causing it. But don't panic. 9 times out of 10, it's totally fixable. We just need to figure out where the loss of connection is, or what is not jiving. Ken says, to Caesar, very true. Have to look at what they use and interpret it into what you plan to do. A source like Angela's site, which I wish I had found sooner, does help for getting appropriate stuff. Well, thank you for that, Ken. I'm glad it helped. Ken says, Jules, hum. Yum? Hum will do. We're right there with you either way. Alicia's here. Hey, Alicia. Good morning. Ramos Radio Live says, guys, I did my first audiobook. That's awesome. Congrats. Yes, congrats. David's here. Hey, David. Jules says to Ken, it's a good barbecue, too. We do it right down here in Florida. I don't know why I did it like that. Masonry Construction says, I chose ACX because mastering is an issue there, but nowhere else for me. So I have a Fiverr sound engineer to do the master only at $5 per finished hour. Eliminates my frustration. And that's another option, too. I mean, ultimately, if you don't want to spend the time and learn it and, figure it out, you can always hire someone else to do it for you. And if you are, conversely, if you are someone who knows editing and mastering and ACX requirements really well, but maybe don't have a whole lot else going on, like there's no audiobooks in queue, there's no VO work to do, you can offer your services to other people who don't want to deal with the editing, mastering, and ACX requirements, right? Offer your services to them on places like Fiverr, Upwork, places like that, if you know how to do it well. Tanya's here. Hey, Tanya. Jules says, that's always the best feeling. Yeah, congrats. Paul says, good day, Angela et al. Happy to say I have no particular challenges, but interested to see what might crop up. Maybe that's a good place to be in. Definitely. If you have any insight or, if you have any tips, Paul, go ahead and share them. Ramos says it is. Abe says, don't forget to drop a like, folks. Yes, do all the YouTubey things. My algorithm thanks you. Dwight says, hello, Angela from the road. I'll be lurking today. Have fun. Focus on the road, Dwight. Voiced by Rebecca says, good morning, all. So I went with mic and gear selection because of all the choices. That's before you consider analog versus digital options. Yeah. And I'm kind of surprised that wasn't also, it's shifting so much now. So we are like at 10% of you said mic or gear selection. Treating my room, and then 41% of you said okay, it looks like we're back. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I got disconnected earlier before we even went live, so if I drop out, it's not on purpose. I'm okay. It's just whatever's going on with StreamYard. I think what I want to touch on really quick is the treating of the room. Because as we said before, it's more important than the microphone or the gear that you actually choose. So don't focus so much on what mic fits your voice right now. Just get something that's going to be budget friendly and something that's going to, like the Rode NT1. Just get one of those. And then treating your room is going to be more important. So if you haven't set up a room yet, if you have a spare closet or like a corner of your room where you can sort of block it off with duvets, comforters, think soft, dense material. You don't want flat, smooth surfaces around you when you're recording. You don't want to be in the middle of a large room either. You want to be sort of in the corner, and you want to be as surrounded as possible by soft, dense material. because that will absorb the echo. It will not reflect back to you. Also, keep in mind what is above you and below you. So if you have bare ceiling above you or a hardwood floor beneath you, those also will reflect your voice, causing echo. So treat those as well. If you have to, throw a nice fluffy towel or something on the ceiling above you, and then a rug or a towel or something below you, then you can do that. And again, it doesn't all have to be rock wool and, expensive acoustic treatment. It could be whatever you have on hand. Even like one of those draft stoppers under a door will help to keep your noise floor low. If you have a big gap under the door that you're in, if you close yourself in a room like a closet and you have a big gap under the door, you could get a draft stopper for $10 on Amazon and stick that up under the door too. That will help to, lower your noise floor. Or weather stripping or something like that. Get creative. Thick rugs, yoga mats. If you think about those thick mats that you could probably get like at your local Ross or Home Goods or something for, $10-15 that come in like pieces, or like one big piece, you could put those up on the wall if you wanted to. I mean, if you think of, what else? If you're in a closet full of clothes, don't take the clothes out. The clothes will do you more good to absorb that noise. What else? Cushions, pillows. What else? I made some notes here. I want to make sure that, if you have a bare window in your room, cover that too. That glass will reflect the echo. Or you could also build like a portable booth, which we've talked about a few times. Anthony Pica has a great video on what he refers to as his hobo fort, which he builds a booth out of PVC pipe and then hung moving blankets around it to sort of enclose him in a soft, padded room. But then he would, build it every night that he would record and then take it down the next morning or when he was done recording, so it wouldn't be in the way because it was in the middle of his living room. That's how he did it. Why am I talking fast? I'm talking fast because I'm afraid that the internet or whatever's going to cut out again. You don't want to be facing reflective surfaces like mirrors, windows, walls. Oh, the microphone. If you can keep the microphone as far away from the computer itself, ceiling fans, any kind of floor fans, anything that's going to produce noise, then you want to keep the microphone away from that as much as possible. That was a hard-learned lesson for me because I had this horrendous noise floor, but I couldn't figure out what it was coming from. It wasn't until I realized that the microphone is not just trained to pick up my voice. It's going to pick up everything it hears. So it's picking up the air conditioner right now. It's going to pick up everything that it hears. So you have to isolate your voice, with so the microphone can only pick up your voice. You need to move all other noises away from it, turn them off, and that will help tremendously. Did that make sense? I'm trying to remember everything that I wanted to say. If you can't treat the entire room, you can just focus on sort of like if you think of your recording space as a triangle, you want to treat what's directly in front of you and then off to the sides and then maybe directly behind you. You can do what's called a clap test, where you'll treat your room as best as you possibly can think to do, and then do a sample recording with your DAW and your microphone, and then just be quiet and then clap, right? And then play it back and see if you can hear any echo or anything. And you can also kind of tell without having to record at all if you're clapping in your room. If you can hear an echo of the clap, then you know that your room needs to be treated a little bit more. That's an easy way to test. Also, mic placement is going to be a huge one. You don't want your microphone directly in front of you because when you're speaking, we have those puffs of air that we create when we, when we say words with a P or a D or a T or even C's. When you have that puff of air come out, that's called a plosive. So you want to have your microphone just kind of off to the side of your mouth, but pointed at your mouth, at about this distance. This is the easiest way to gauge it. So I have a pop filter on, but my mouth is about that distance away from my microphone and off axis. So it's pointed at my mouth, but I'm speaking past it. So the plosives, for the most part, don't make it into the microphone. What else? Also using your car. I've heard a lot of people in a pinch using their car to record in. If you have something that is travel worthy. What else? Trying to think of what else we could talk about in terms of treating your room. I'm all paranoid about YouTube dropping off again. Let's go back to the comments. And again, if you have specific questions, please ask them. Rustic Hillbilly is here. Good morning, good morning. Thanks for joining. Ramos Radio says we should have 28 likes by now. Should probably have more by now. Like it. Tanya says, congratulations. The first one is so satisfying. Oh, the first book that you finish? Absolutely. Rebecca says, but I cheat because I outsource the other options to Caesar. That's not cheating. That's just smart investment. Natalie's Narration says, good morning. Mic and gear selection is my choice. Always looking for ways to improve my sound, but it ain't cheap. I know. You have to spend money to make money, right? You do. But I think you can probably get better sound faster by focusing on your space. And even mic placement. I mean, just changing those two things can make a huge difference in your sound. Alicia says, congratulations, Ramos Radio. Yes. Life Unleashed says, hello all. Colleen from Cape Cod. To everyone on Discord that's messaged me, I'm sorry I haven't responded yet. I just have to learn Discord. Same. Took me a while to learn it too, but it's fun once you figure it out. Katya says editing and mastering. Michelle says, good morning, Angela and all. Definitely editing and mastering. So I think for those of you in my platinum group, I'm still building the August calendar, so I think that might be one thing we need to touch on is editing and mastering. Whoops. Caesar says, every time I review gear options with voiceover Angela, she usually says something along the lines of, holy heck, that's over $1,000. I mean, you like what you like, Caesar. Not everybody has that kind of money to throw at a microphone. Jules says, my first mic was an AKG Lyra, but my advice, if your space is noisier than you'd like, I'd go for a dynamic mic like AKG Stealth. Again, the Rode NT1 is also a good choice. It has very low self-noise. It's a clean mic for, if you're on a budget. It's a great one to start with. I had one for a while. My cup of tea says, good morning all. Hope you're doing well. I brought cinnamon roll donuts. Oh, good God. That sounds good. Paul says, I was luck. I found a Sontronics STC-20 on eBay and found it worked well for me. I now mainly use the STC-2, but it's basically the same mic, and the total cost for best was about $125. Cost for both. Got it. Tanya says, getting set up for LibriVox helped me with ACX requirements. Same. Then advice from everyone here has helped with the rest, especially getting RMS consistent. Kat says to Caesar, I plan to bug you when I get a bit further along. I was looking at dB versus dBFS, decibel relative to full scale. Life Unleashed, I started with a real cheapo Fifine USB. I landed some auditions, then got an AT2020. I've heard a few other people using that same Fifine? How do you even pronounce that? I've heard of a few people using that mic and having decent results, but definitely more with the AT2020. Gregory's here. Hello, Sir Gregory. Hello, Angelolonians. Learning ACX standards has set the standards for how I produce projects and auditions. One advantage Audacity has over Audition is it has ACX check to analyze levels. It does, however, It's a third-party plugin. Am I wrong? And third-party plugins are not always 100% accurate. Even ACX's own ACX checker, which is Audiolab, is not 100% accurate 100% of the time. So this is why I always stress to you, if you want to know that your ACX standards are correct, is to learn how to do it yourself in your DAW, is to learn just enough about your DAW and how to use it to just to be sure that your noise level is where it's supposed to be. You can check it yourself. Your RMS levels are where they're supposed to be, and that you're not exceeding -3 dB as a peak. If you know for a fact that you meet all of those because you personally check them all, then you'll be fine. And you won't have to rely on a third party to tell you if you're good or not. That was also something I wanted to touch on. So roundabout way, thank you, Gregory, for reminding me. But I had a question on one of my videos that I was going through this morning about the -3 peak requirement for ACX. Please remember that the -3 peak requirement is not the target. Your files do not have to be at exactly -3 peak. That's a threshold, not a target. So you're not trying to be exactly -3, just not exceeding it. So if your files are -3.012 or -3.56, those are fine. As long as your peak isn't exceeding -3, meaning that your files aren't eclipsing that. They're not in the -2s or -1s. Those are too high. Those are exceeding that peak. But if you're just below it, then you're fine. It's a threshold, not the target. Keep that in mind. Fee-fine is my guy. Is it Fi-fine or Fee-fine? Fee-fine is more fun. Kat says, and I only said editing mastering because that is what I'm learning now. ACX requirements is next for me. Yeah, once you can get a firm enough grasp on editing and mastering, ACX requirements aren't that difficult. I did it, I think, the other way around because I started this industry with my focus on audiobooks. So I was learning ACX standard while I was learning editing and mastering, but to the point of meeting ACX's requirements. So I sort of learned ACX requirements first, or editing to achieve ACX requirements. So it's kind of built into my brain. Masonry Construction says, I'd rate the ability to tell a story, to emote, to use silence as well as volume are the essential ingredients. Mike comes along, maybe second place for me, but then I only do NF. He's not wrong, but today we're focusing on everything apart from your performance itself. Because getting your space set up, or at least have an idea of what you need to do to get to the point where you can start, focusing on your performance. I mean, they're all kind of different stages that I guess can meld together. I've focused on setting up my space first and then kind of improved my performance over time. But that's usually the biggest question with people starting out is, what the heck do I buy? What the heck do I do? What does my room need to, how do I set this up? I'm lost. So we're going to try to help you find your way. Caesar says to Jules, you have an Aston Stealth and it sounds great. Once you start getting into more dynamic emotional performances, consider a large diaphragm mic. You have a TLM 103 and an Aston Spirit for choice. I think, Jules, did you end up buying that TLM 103? I think you said you were looking at one once. Andrew Lee is here. Hey, Andrew. Click that thumbs up, Angela fans. That's so weird to say. But yes, please. Click that like button. Please. Jules says, Caesar, I forget what's what. Paul says to Gregory, Excuse me, Sir Gregory. Adobe Audition has amplitude statistics, which tells you all you need to know in terms of meeting ACX spec. It's exactly what I use in Adobe Audition. I will manually test the volume of my noise floor and then use amplitude statistics for everything else. You're only looking at that top number to see if I'm exceeding that peak level threshold of -3. And then I'm looking at the total RMS to see if I'm within, -18 to -23. That's all you really need in Adobe Audition to know that you're within specs. Life Unleashed says, Audacity has been crashing on me. I may look into Adobe Audition. If any DAW is crashing on you, then I would probably look into removing old versions and then uninstalling, reinstalling, or pretty much the same thing. Uninstalling all the versions and then reinstalling the current version. I have found in the past that even with Adobe Audition, if there's multiple versions present on my computer of Adobe Audition, it gets a little glitchy. So if it does, then that could be the case. It was for me, that there were multiple versions present on your computer, which was making it kind of crash out a little bit. Caesar says to Kat, there's more. dBVU, dBA weighted, RMS, LUFS, decibels, full scale. We'll go over what's relevant based on the equipment you have and the DAW you use. Black Bob Matters says, I did my first 2 books in Audacity, but I have started to learn Adobe Audition today. Well, congratulations. I don't know about you, but it was like that first day of switching from Audacity to Adobe Audition for me was like I was trying to work like looking through a straw, and then using Adobe Audition, like the whole world just kind of opened up once I understood what I no longer had to deal with, like what I, there was like no more, frustrating issues with Audacity. That was my experience. Might not be everybody's experience, but I was happy I made the switch. Tanya says, I bought a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 starter kit with interface mic, cables, and headphones used for my last 3 books. Cost effective and works until I can upgrade. And that's not a bad point either, is that if you're looking to just have something, there are a handful of bundles that you can purchase. The Scarlett bundle is one of them, where they give you kind of everything that you need to get started, whether it be for audiobook narration or podcasting. They're not, obviously, they're not the best for everyone because it's just a bundle of things. It's like some interfaces and some microphones are going to be better for certain space sizes, voices, microphones. You kind of have to find a winning combination as you go along. But if you don't want to deal with any of that and just want to get started with something, you could buy a bundle and then upgrade as you go along if you're just one of those people. And the Focusrite bundle is not a bad place to start. I think, did Rode do that too? I want to say Rode also had a bundle at one point. Ramos Radio Live says the ACX plugin for Audacity helps a lot. Because I don't think for Audacity there's a way to check it yourself. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Audacity has like an amplitude statistics checker or something like that to be able to check it. You're kind of reliant on those third-party plugins. Checkers. Yes. Eric Grimes says, hi, Angela and the A-Team. I like that, the A-Team. I seem to recall someone in the Platinum group talking about a way to test different mics to see how they sound with your voice. Can you speak to that? Or perhaps Caesar? The only way that I know how to do that with different microphones is to go into like your local, local instrument store where they might have microphones on display for testing. But even then, anything that's kind of left out to the public could be damaged, could be, messed with in some way. So those might not give you an accurate representation of how you'd sound. So it's kind of hard to determine. Again, the way that I chose my microphone was that I watched all the microphones that I was considering in Booth Junkie's channel and watched his comparisons on them. I read all the reviews about them. I tried to find like women with the same kind of voice, with a low end sort of a voice like mine, using it and to see what they sounded like. And then from there, it's just kind of like a, trial and error. You buy it, you test it. If you don't like it, send it back, get something else. It could be, a little bit of a rigmarole, but it might end up being worth it. I think there's a certain microphone that has, there's a few microphones actually that have different settings within them that can change, almost like a voice changer within them. But it's not but it's the same microphone. It's just a different sound that it's creating within that same microphone. Katya said, started with an AT2020 and now working with an AKG C214. Love it, especially when my DAW is actually working. May have to download Audacity until I fix my crackling issues in Audition. Natalie's Narration says, I'm using Audacity and I'm wanting to make the leap to Adobe Audition. I've heard so many good things about it, but I don't like that it's a subscription. Yeah, unfortunately, not everything great is going to be free or low cost. It was the same way for me. I didn't want to have to pay for a bunch of subscriptions or, if I wasn't at that time sure that this is something that I wanted to do. But I think when it came down to downloading Adobe Audition and then just kind of, doing the trial and just kind of messing around with it and then realizing that it was so much better than Audacity, in my opinion, it was like it was worth it. It was worth it. It was worth like the $20 a month or whatever it was to not have to be stressing out about, the extra time that Audacity was taking me to do things. Tanya says, Adobe Audition is the best money I spend each month alongside my Platinum Group membership. Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, same. I think Adobe Audition was probably one of the best investments I've made, too. Jules says, I heard it. LOL, it's garbage day here. Your noise isn't distracting. Well, it was for me. It sounded like someone was trying to break through my wall. But I think they're just distributing gravel out there or something. I don't know what they're doing. Cup of Tea says, question, if a kid like middle school age wants to start VO, where would you recommend they begin? Would it be any different from what you already recommend? Yes and no. I think it's going to be a little bit, are we talking as far as like gear and hardware? No, not really. You just have to make sure that the microphone that you're trying is going to complement their voice, because of course their voice is going to be, well, I guess it also depends on the middle school age, kid too, and their voice. But I think it would be pretty much the same. It might be slightly different equipment just due to the voice pitch. I'm thinking like, younger, but some kids are fast growers. But not much difference, no. Then the room treatment's going to be the same. All the other things are going to be the same apart from which mic you probably choose. Katya says, has anyone had a crackling issue with Audition in the playbacks? This literally started happening this morning out of the blue. If that's the case, then I would just unplug and replug everything. It sounds like a connection issue. If you're just having issues with it today, something is not completely seated or connected or dirty. That's what I would do. Masonry Construction says, for my nonfiction audiobooks, I use Descript for editing. So simple to edit like a Word document. Minimal learning curve, best way to remove all my stupid mistakes, ahs and ums, master by others. Ken P. said what Tanya said. Caesar says to Katya, you could try switching your audio host from MME to ASIO, especially if you have your Scarlett drivers installed. I'm assuming you're on a Windows. If it's Mac, it could be something else. That's a great point, too, because with just having, slow down, Angela, in just having an Audition, I discovered that they're same as what Caesar's saying. that there's all these little different settings within Adobe Audition that one of them, if it's not, if that box isn't ticked or if something, there's a lot of different settings that could have a big impact on the way that it either records or plays back. So it's probably either your connection or something within the settings even. That's so frustrating. I've been there. Caesar says to Natalie, I assure you that the subscription will pay for itself in terms of having a faster VO processing workflow. I messaged on Discord, by the way. Let's connect soon. See if we can find some more questions. Stacy Bertrand says, good morning, Angela. My first time here. Love your video content. Well, thank you, Stacy. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Masonry Construction says, tip, if you're doing mostly royalty share books, as I am, realize that the most important part of being a narrator is being a good marketer. Audible does almost zero to help. It's up to you. Get reviews fast. Ken P says, second booth junkie. Most of the reason why I set up my gear and booth the way it is. Yeah, following booth junkie. Let's see. Stacy says, I just picked up a Rode NT1 5th gen just about 3 weeks ago. Good choice. Alex has got some recommendations. Too many mics to mention, but started with the Sennheiser EVR 20, EVR 27, a Neumann U87. Classic but stolen. Ugh, that's heartbreaking. That's my dream mic, is the Neumann U87. Currently Loughton Audio Atlantis. Kat says, when I get there, should I buy Isotope RX11 from Isotope or Sweetwater? Whichever one is cheaper. But they usually have sales about the same time, because whenever Isotope does a sale, it triggers Sweetwater's sale. It's pretty much all the same. So if you can find it cheaper on one versus the other, it's all the same. Just buy it. Whichever one is offering a cheaper price, but they're usually about the same everywhere. Life Unleashed says, I record from my bed. I have a side table with mic and tablet. I drape a blanket over them and put a pillow on my lap. Also made a mini tent out of PVC. Interesting. See, people getting creative. Mason Construction says the Samson Q2U at about $60 new with both USB and XLR will take you a long way. It's worked for me over a dozen projects through ACX. Tanya says to Kat, Isotope has regular sales. That's how I got my RX11. They are under Native Instruments now, so not sure how often they discount. Let's see. Rebecca says, my setup is a Rode NT1 Signature Series with an SSL MK2 interface, and it's a fantastic combination. Very little or no distortion, even when I was just shy of hitting 0 dB. Dang. Let's see. Katya says, thank you for your advice. Try not to kick my furniture. just kick it. You'll feel better. Caesar says to Katya, okay, are you listening to Angela right now through your headphones on your 2i2 and there's no crackling? Oh, look at that. Caesar's trying to get into troubleshooting. Ben, hey, Ben. Reaper allows me to save rendering presets. I load them, and I've never had any issue with ACX specs. Yeah, same with Audition. You can have rack presets on both DAWs. So that way your sound is consistent across each file and will help you meet those ACX standards each and every time. But that may take a little trial and error to get done, or if you want to hire an audio engineer to set those up for you. But having a rack preset definitely helps with consistency and time. Dylan. Hey, Dylan. Hi, all. I choose treating my space, not because it needs more sound treatment, but because it's roughly the temperature of Satan's sauna right now. Same. Ken says jiggle the screen a bit there. Oh, yeah, when the StreamYard lost connection to my YouTube like twice before I went live, so it must have been some sort of a hiccup there. I'm not sure what is going on. Looks like we're okay, though. Jules says, I like my little padded box. Abe says, pool noodles cut in half do well for under the door. There you go. There's a lot of uses for pool noodles. Pool noodles. Angel says, hey, everyone, on the road to loving this conversation on my birthday. Happy birthday. See y'all on Thursday. Yes, ma'am. Yep, buffer size. Changing your buffer size in Adobe Audition, Katya. Let's see. Tanya even says to Katya, I had a similar issue a few times. I changed the output speaker choice in the audio hardware preference in Audition, and it corrected itself. Dylan says, I don't know. Sauna snacks sound great to me, but I bet he doesn't share, though. Let's see. I'm looking for questions. Joy is here. Hey, Joy. Hello, everyone from sunny Southfield, Michigan. I have powdered cinnamon donuts. Oh, those are awesome. I tell you, having my noise floor set according to ACX requirements is a pain. Yeah, usually the noise floor is one of the biggest hang-ups for most voice actors, is getting that noise floor under control, especially in the peak seasons of, cold or heat. Because we have to have that HVAC going, right? To either warm up the space or cool it down. For sure. Life Unleashed Unleashed? Life Unleashed. I've had awesome results with the ACX check with Audacity. Once in a while, the RMS will be off slightly, and it will. I mean, you're not going to have consistent results each and every time you record. It's all going to depend on what you're recording, right? If you're recording an e-learning project that's pretty much uniform in tone and pace and volume, and then you get into an audiobook where there's dialogue and people are upset and they're getting louder and it's going to be a sharper, it's going to vary from, file to file. It's not going to be completely consistent 100% of the time. So some of the files might need a little extra massaging to meet ACX requirements from time to time, but for the most part, if your presets or your effects or whatever are, working, and you have them set up in a particular way, then for the most part, they're going to do what you need them to do. And then you just can, adjust what needs to be adjusted for each file. And that's why we check them. That's why we check each and every file to see what needs to be massaged, if need be. It's really getting hot in here. I should probably turn my air conditioner back on. Let's see. Questions. Caesar says, Fifine faux fum. I smell the blood of a transformer balanced large diaphragm FET condenser. Or however it goes. Ah, that's why it's hot in here. My nest thinks I'm not home. Told you. Jules says, yes, I did buy the TLM 103. It's gorgeous. And I'm looking at the C414X. I can't tell what Roman numeral that is. My eyes are poopy. Next, but there's no rush for that one. Oh, what just happened to the chat? What is going on? Abe says, I tried to reinstall for Audacity, but no joy. Latest update seems to be unstable. I jumped ship to Audition at the perfect time. Oh, so it's not an isolated incident. It sounds like Audacity might be having some issues. Life Unleashed says, thank you so much for the info on Audacity crashing. I recently updated. I'll check to see. It might just be an update bug. I might have to update it again. Oh, thank you for that. Loving the Platinum group. They are recorded, so if you do miss one, you can always go back and watch it. All of them, all over, how many do we have? Over 200 of them now. They're all recorded and available to watch anytime. Let's see. Kat says, and you can expense subscriptions. Yeah, I mean, it's an expense. I mean, I can't technically give you tax advice, but I would call it an expense because it is. It's something to keep the business running, right? Seek tax professional help. Disclaimer. Caesar says, being able to read the microphone's frequency response and knowing which parts of your voice needs help and which parts need attenuation will give you a good approximation of how the mic matches you. Dave says, regarding ACX plugin you just mentioned, how do you invoke it? Or is it automatically run when recording or saving a file? It's something you need to download. Trying to remember where I found it. For those of you that have the ACX check for Audacity, where did you guys find that? I downloaded it from somewhere, but I don't remember where. Masonry Construction says, tip on most well-known software such as Audition, etc. Try relying on AI, such as Gemini, ChatGPT. It will help you to troubleshoot software problems and is always patient with me. That's a good point, and I think we forget that. Gemini, I have heard, has walked many people through many troubleshooting issues. At the very least, try Google, because now Google has implemented AI in their responses. So even if you ask a question into Google, it might at least direct you to a place where it might answer your question or solve your problem. NZVO Nikki says, guess I'm confused why people would outsource mastering only. It's the simplest and quickest part for me. I select the audio and apply the effect stack. That's it. Am I missing something? No, most of the time when people outsource it is just because A, they just don't want to deal with it, or B, they're too busy to deal with it. There's been a handful of times where in my career that I went from maybe having one book in queue to like 5 or 6, like that. And a lot of them had overlapping due dates or deadlines. And so I didn't have time to do the editing and mastering. I had to outsource it so I can move on to the next book. It's happened a few times. And a lot of people get into the same situations. So if you enjoy that part, maybe offer that assistance to other narrators. A Cup of Tea says, question, if a kid like, I think we ask in Discord, yeah. We did touch on that. It's not much of a change. I think the only thing that would be different would be the actual microphone itself. But I would definitely ask that question in Discord as well. Life Unleashed says, oops, if my noise floor fails, I lower the level by just using noise reduction on my long pauses, and it works like a charm. Yes, you could do that, or you could try to isolate where the noise is coming from and move it further away or cut it off altogether. Meaning, what is the source? What is the root cause of the noise? Is your computer too close to your microphone? Is your air conditioner on? I mean, that could be a simple fix. I mean, you'll have a much better quality of sound in the end result in your file if you don't have to do any kind of noise reducer at all. You'll have a much better sounding result if you could just find the root cause of the noise and remove it, reduce it up front before you record. Joy says, yeah, my problem is the AC running and people with motorcycles driving by. So loud it makes my booth shake and is driving me nuts. Okay. Record when the AC is off. Edit while it's on. Motorcycles are temporary. It's a they usually are scooting around really quick. So just pause. When you hear one coming, just pause. Take that moment to take a drink of water. Stand up, stretch real quick, whatever you got to do. And then resume recording. Re-record the sentence you were just recording. But definitely record with the air conditioner off. And I say that living in Arizona in the summertime. If I can do it, anybody can do it. You just have to record in short bursts so you don't roast alive, obviously. But you'll have a much better sounding end result if you just record with the air conditioner off. And then edit while it's on. Stacy says, my favorite quote Angela said that resonated with me, procrastinator. Yes. Don't be a procrastinator. Don't get stuck in learning because you're need to learn something before you can move forward. That's baloney. You're just telling yourself that you need to learn something. Just do it. Just do it already. Otherwise, you'll hold yourself back. You'll never be ready. Don't get me started on that tangent, Stacy. Okay, Masonry Construction says Gemini is up to date, owned by Google. ChatGPT has a knowledge base of September 2023, so is not up on the most current updates, but it can still work. No problem. Life Unleashed says the root source is probably my digs moving dogs moving on the bed, or if my little tent moves a little. I mean, what can you do? Animals are going to try their best to have our constant attention regardless of what it is we're doing, right? Bob says, who did you say has a video on making a portable booth? I have an idea in my head, but I'd like to see someone who's actually done it. I've actually seen a handful of people make videos about these PVC booths. Just go into the YouTube search bar and type in PVC portable booth, something of that nature, and you'll see probably more than a handful of them. But I have got to go. I've got some work to do, so thank you everyone for joining me today in this live stream. If there's something that you want to talk more about, learn more about, get more opinions from other people on, then please put it in the comments down below. Remember, these live chats are for you. So tell me what you want to learn more about, talk about. So with that, thank you, phone. With that, it's time to go. So I'll just see you guys next time. I'll see you next Platinum Group. I'll see you guys on Thursday. And for the rest of you, I'll see you next week. Bye.